that were targeted in the years 1942 and 1943 during the combined bomber offensive in Europe.
That night marked a new point in warfare. Precision bombing had become a reality. Only one Allied pilot was killed. At the White House, the politicians were euphoric.
The first night of the war, everybody was, in heaven. They saw these strikes go in very successfully. Casualties were almost nil. Television pictures of bombs going down chimney stacks and all that sort of stuff. And some of the reporters were running around saying, this is going to be over right away. And I had to call down to the Pentagon press office and tell them, shut those guys up. We have just started a war. It isn't a one-day affair. It's not going to be over before the next commercial break.
Just before dawn, the RAF attacked an airbase near Basra, Iraq's second city. Lacking American technology, for years the RAF had trained to surprise the enemy by flying low and fast. It was not a tactic they'd had the chance to use on a modern battlefield.
Out there it was burning blue. I mean, it was probably 8 o'clock in the morning, at 8:30, and it was blue sky and the visibility was 1,000 miles.
We were flying at maybe 60 or 70 feet and about 500 or 600 miles an hour, and there's this huge explosion and a flash, and the aircraft was hit by a missile.
Well, I had blue above my head. Suddenly the desert was above my head and it was just tumbling.
I couldn't see the back of the aircraft. All it was a ball of fire, and the fire was spreading its way down the spine of the aircraft towards me.
And then you say, this aircraft is going no further. And you go, give me the ejection drills,
It's actually half a second between pulling the handle and being thrown clear of the aircraft, and that half a second's like a lifetime.
And then it's as if someone, a huge giant, just grabs you by the shoulder. He yanks you up, and I remember my head going forward.
And then there's the crack as the canopy opens, and you're left in your parachute. And it's deathly silent, and there we were about to land in the desert in Iraq.
And then you realise how big the desert is, and how clear the sky is.
We'd gone from these modern-day nights on our high-tech Chargers, flashing around the sky in 20 million pounds worth of technology, and suddenly there we were, two very sad pink bodies in the desert.
Then, after about 3 hours, we saw some Iraqis coming towards us.
And shots started to ring out, and they were shooting at us. They were trying to kill us.
And we were down low, and I can't see it. And I remember John looking at them here as we were down, and going, should we go out with a bang? And I don't know why. I just said, no, there's always hope.
Saddam Hussein was moving between safe houses in the suburbs. The bombing had been destructive, but hadn't inflicted the civilian deaths Saddam had judged would outrage world opinion. His former intelligence chief says when he briefed Saddam on the situation, his temper flared.
I said, I know that Iraq will be destroyed. I'm telling you the truth. Saddam said, these Americans are technicians, not soldiers who fight. They have technology on their side, but that won't help them win.
Saddam had already planned where to strike back. That morning, when he met his ministers, he ordered action he believed would shatter the coalition of Western and Arab countries attacking Iraq. Mobile launchers hidden in the desert fired Scud missiles at Israel.
We had the capability, we did it. When you are attacked by an enemy, you attack your enemies. That's natural.
The Scuds were fired indiscriminately at Israel's largest city. Saddam judged the Israelis would retaliate and join the conflict. The Arabs in the coalition would then refuse to fight alongside Israel. The coalition would collapse, and so would the war. Soon, more Scuds were on the way. Israel's nuclear forces now went on full alert. 60 Israeli jets took to the skies. Early warning radar appeared to show Iraqi bombers heading for Israel. The American Defense Secretary picked up the hotline to Tel Aviv. Israeli retaliation seemed inevitable.
Imagine an American president sitting quietly as missiles land on the United States saying, no, we're not going to do anything. I mean, that's an unacceptable political position for any government.
The Israeli army reported nerve gas in the debris of one of the missiles. Israelis prepared for the worst.
We knew we had a real problem at this point, because if Israel got into the war, this was a real break for Saddam. If he provoked the Israelis into attacking him, then the chances of holding the coalition together really became problematical.
I must say that this is the darnest way to conduct an interview.
Ultimately, none of the 8 Scuds that landed that night proved to have chemical warheads.
The kind of threat we're facing.
After some discussion, Baghdad had decided the Israelis might retaliate against a chemical attack with nuclear weapons.
Actions that are necessary to remove it.
أكيد بأن قسما من الصواريخ سكود كان.
Some of the Scud missiles were loaded with chemical warheads, but they weren't used. They were kept hidden throughout the war.
إلى ما بعد الحرب. سبب عدد
We didn't use them because the other side had a deterrent force.
المتوفرة لدى الطرف المقابل.
The man who decided what happened next was Israel's Prime Minister, Yitzhak Shamir. He and George Bush disliked each other, but now Bush telephoned him. An angry Shamir told the president if America couldn't stop the Scuds, the Israeli Air Force would.
Bush said to Shamir, pleaded with Shamir, tried to cajole Shamir that Israel not take any military action, that this would be injurious to the cause to the Allied cause, that in the final analysis this would also be injurious to Israel's cause.
I think in such situations you have not to play with words. It couldn't be a moment of diplomatic discussions and debates. And well, I explained to him, it's very difficult, Mr. President, it's very difficult. I don't know what the day of tomorrow will bring, but at this moment, we will act accordingly, accordingly with your concepts.
Israel became the president's top priority.
We were going to be redoubling our efforts, and the darndest search and destroy effort that's ever been undertaken out in that area, and I hope that is very reassuring to the citizens of Israel.
But Norman Schwarzkopf believed the Air Force should concentrate on winning the war, not placating the Israelis. He was furious at Washington's interference.
He called them pointy-headed politicians who had never fought their way out of a wet paper bag.
From my perspective, from the strategic perspective, and the president's perspective, and obviously I was doing this with the president's approval, it was vital to keep the Israelis out of the conflict. And that the way you did that was to make certain that they knew we were doing everything humanly possible to deal with that Scud threat.
Cheney overruled Schwarzkopf. Aircraft started to crisscross 28,000 square miles of desert, hunting for perhaps 14 mobile Scud launchers. They couldn't find them. Neither could they find the convoys bringing supplies of fresh missiles.
They used to transport the Scuds to us in civilian buses. They'd take out all the seats and slide a missile in through the back. Even if the bus was spotted by an enemy plane, the pilot would assume it was just full of passengers.
But there was another way to hunt Scuds. SAS columns were fighting deep inside Iraq. Schwarzkopf distrusted special forces. But 5 days before, the SAS commander had persuaded him to make an exception.
There had to be people on the ground. human eye cannot be replaced by technology.